All right, that's a wrap, Rube. The 2022 NFL Draft is in the books.
I thought you were saying the podcast was ours. That was a really short episode of Eagle Eye.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please do us a favor.
Yeah. Always one of the more intriguing few days of the year, because it's really the one time, like, they won't say we need linebackers. They won't say we have to upgrade this and that. So this is really the first chance, and maybe the first day of free agency or the first couple of days, but this is really when you find out, they can't hide their emotions and their feelings about the team. And you see them remaking certain positions. It speaks volumes. They don't have to say it because they're doing it. So you always really get a good sense during the stretch of what Howie and Nick think about the football team by what they do, because they're not going to say it.
This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. You already know that. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We appreciate you guys listening and reading and following along all weekend, because it is a grind for us. But man, I really do enjoy these days. It's a lot of fun. And the Eagles finished off their draft with 2 more draft picks. They traded around a little bit, but they still ended up with 2 players. We're going to go through the 2 players they drafted. Then we'll kind of take a look at the overall draft class of 2022. We'll go over some of the stuff that Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and Andy Weidel said after the draft concluded. And then we'll look at a few of the undrafted guys the Eagles have already agreed to terms with. But Rube, let's start off with the day 3 picks. They started off in the 6th round. They started off in the 5th, and they traded back for 2 6, and then they traded a 7th and a 6th. They moved all around, and they ended up, their first pick was 181 in the 6th round. Kyron Johnson, interesting pick. He's really a Sam linebacker in this scheme.
Yeah, 6 feet, 235. He had some sacks. I don't know at 6 feet, 235 if he's going to be able to get to the quarterback on Sundays. You got to figure out where he's going to play, where he fits in. He's kind of I'm not sure, what to do with him. I'm not sure.
I know what to do with him. Let him play the Sam and rush the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much success he'll have doing that, but yeah, I guess that's where you start with.
He's basically Hassan Reddick size, a little smaller.
Yeah, but still, I mean, Reddick has a proven body work. It's not a body size and shape and that generally has success doing that. But a 6th round pick, you put him there, you see how he does. He's a long shot.
Yeah, he's a long shot, but I think there is some upside there. Saw him in Mobile. That's where they really liked him. And I remember from that week, it was him and Jesse Luketa from Penn State, the 2 undersized guys there, I thought had good weeks rushing the passer against much bigger and stronger offensive tackles. I think that's how they'll use him. I mean, he'll be a backup there. He'll probably be competing with Patrick Johnson, last year's 7th round pick, for the backup Sam position behind Hassan Reddick, but also pretty good special teamer, which is a big deal for if you're going to get drafted in the 6th round as a linebacker, you better be able to play special teams.
Yeah, and that's probably where, if he's on the team, that's where his real value is going to be. It's hard to imagine him playing a whole lot of reps on defense, but I could see him really being a difference maker on special teams.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not taking Reddick off the field for a 6th round pick from Kansas.
He won 9 games in his entire college career. So,
yeah, they stink.
How we talked about how we want winners. He's, if you're gonna give the Georgia guys and the Alabama guys credit for all those wins, you got to say, look, Kyron, how come he only won 9 games in college? But yeah, and I think he's from Dallas. He's a Dallas kid, so he probably grew up as a Cowboys fan, so that's another strike against him. But no, you let him run around in training camp and see. I mean, either Patrick Johnson or him is going to make the team. You would think. I don't think Patrick Johnson did a whole lot on special teams. I don't really remember seeing him standing out on special teams. So that might give this kid the edge for that spot.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. And he does have good athleticism, which is Important. I think I like taking shots on high percentage athletes in late rounds.
Okay. Well, here you go. Then you like this pick.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well draft for upside in the 6th round, right?
Yeah.
And that's what he is. And the
Yeah.
next guy is too. Grant Calcaterra from SMU, originally from Oklahoma. Interesting backstory. I mean, he has the talent to be, probably still would have been a day 3 pick, but an earlier day 3 pick, if not for the questions about his concussion history, which is, he didn't make it seem very significant, but it was significant enough that he walked away from football for an entire year.
Yeah, played 3 years at Oklahoma, 17, 18, and 19, and then
Well, he missed
retired.
a lot of the 19 season.
Yeah. Yeah, but those were the 3 years he was playing. And before the 2020 season, he put out a Twitter video announcing he was retiring from football, and he left school and he moved back to Southern California. And I mean, I hate to say it, but he was working to become a firefighter. And but it wasn't while he was playing, so it's okay. I mean, firefighters are good things. When fireman Danny was doing it, the problem was he was on the team
He
when
was
he was doing
sneaking
it.
away to go play fireman. Yeah.
He was. He liked riding the truck, man. He was like, Can I ring the bell?"
I mean, I get it. I would love to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. But so, he missed. He said he was working construction. He got a certificate for as an EMT, which is a requirement to be a firefighter, and that was what he was going to do. And he just missed football. And he said he had 2 concussions. And I'd seen in other places that was more than that.
You know what he said? The way he phrased it was, he said a couple, and I think, which is 2, but a lot of people use the term couple meaning more like a few. So I think that might have been like a semantics thing. He really downplayed it, but I mean, it's something to be a little concerned with from the Eagles' perspective. If he checks out medically and you get him much later because of it, by all means, in the 6th round. But you'll worry about it.
Absolutely. And he said, so he when he decided to unretire, he played at SMU this past year. He played 1 year at Southern Methodist in Dallas, and he said he played the whole year. He took a lot of hits, a lot of big hits, as a tight end is wont to do, and was fine. Didn't have any more concussions. I mean, you see guys like Jordan Reed are out of the league. You just, with each concussion, they have a cumulative effect. And I read one interview where he said, I just want to play football and I'll live with the consequences later, which is kind of a scary thing to hear. But he was cleared. He was cleared to play at SMU this past year. He was cleared for all football activities now, passed the Eagles physical. He said he didn't really know much about concussions when he retired, and he learned about them, and he asked questions, and he saw doctors, and he was assured that he was okay to return to football. And he played a full season. I think he caught 38 passes last year. Good receiver. And here he is. So it is scary. And, the CTE stuff is really scary. They've made big strides with helmets, and, they've pretty much eliminated kickoff returns, and, for the most part. So they've done things to try to make the game safer. Zach Ertz's mom is really involved with the company that's making those super safe helmets. But yeah, you worry about him. I mean, because, we've all seen players, you hear about Kevin Cobb, who's all these years later is having terrible, terrible problems with his memory and headaches from concussions that he suffered when he was playing. We all know some of the players who've died. I mean, I covered Andre Waters, who, he was one of the first guys that his family allowed his brain to be studied for CTE research. It was one of the groundbreaking, studies. So, yeah, it's a little scary, but he's been cleared, and I think he's a talented kid. He's got good size. He catches the ball really well, and they certainly need a TE too. Tyree Jackson, Jack Stahl, Jay Jaw, that's your tight ends. Rich Rod. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's got the talent to be the second tight end, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, and Jack Stoll became that last year as an undrafted player. So they use a 6th-round pick on Calcaterra, and they look at him as that F tight end who's not going to play in line where Dallas Goedert's that prototypical Y. He plays in line, strong at the point of attack. And it's really kind of the position that they move J-Jaw to, because they see him as almost like a big receiver who needs to block on occasion. Not good news for J-Jaw. He's trying to make this team, and they bring in a guy at the position who has some experience, who by all accounts is more talented than where he got drafted. Probably doesn't bode well for him.
No, and I mean, he was a long shot before they drafted Calcaterra, so he's a longer shot now.
Yeah. All right, so let's go through the entire draft. I'll just run down the picks. I'll recap everybody, and then we can kind of go through with the guys we've already talked about the last few days, but maybe we have some new perspective on the draft class as a whole. In the first round, they trade up, get Jordan Davis from Georgia. Later in the first round, we'll include him in the draft class because I feel like you kind of need to. They trade for A.J. Brown with the Titans. And then with the 100 and this is out of order here. Oh, this is trades. Oh, I was looking at the tracker here. I got real thrown off. And then the second round, Cam Jurgens at number 51 overall, the center. In the third round, Nakobe Dean somehow makes it to 83 overall. And then the two guys we just talked about. So, Rube, let's just go through them. Jordan Davis, do you feel any differently now about this pick than you did a couple days ago when they made it?
No, I think it's a great situation for him to spend this year, playing, learning from Fletcher and Javon Hargrave. He won't have to go out there and play a huge number of snaps, which he probably wouldn't be ready for anyway. I'm curious to see how how his game evolves beyond just being a run stuffer, which we know he's as good as anybody doing that. I'm really eager to see him. They don't do a whole lot of hitting in training camp. They'll do some during joint practices with the Browns. I want to see this kid against the run. I want to see just what a beast he is against the run. I like the pick. I mean, I think there's a little bit of risk there because he is kind of a one-dimensional player at 13. You would like an interior lineman that's really got some elite pass rushing ability, but he's so good against the run. And like Andy Weidel said on Thursday night, it's in his body to be a guy who can get to the quarterback. He just wasn't asked to do it at Georgia. We think he has the skill set to do it. And so they seem to think he can do it, and we'll see how that evolves. But I think it's going to be a good year for him to come in without having to start, without having to be the guy. You pick a guy 13th, you'd like to have him start, but it's kind of an unusual circumstance because it's Fletcher's last year here. And Hargrave is unsigned beyond this year too. So I think it'll be a good situation for him to learn, to get his feet wet, play 25 snaps a game, something like that, maybe 30, and depending how long you're out there, and and really learn the NFL game.
Yeah, I think the period of time between now and the start of training camp are going to be big for him. He's got to make sure he's got to cut some weight.
Say he's 345.
345. That's too heavy. That's too heavy right now. He
15 pounds.
Maybe not even that much, but he should be in the 330s, I think. And they'll have to come up with a plan for him. I mean, I'll tell you who's got an important job with him is Ted Rath, their director of sports performance. They've got to figure out the right plan, dietary and weight room, and trying to figure out the exact right body he needs to have to be effective, not just as a run stuffer, but to reach that untapped potential as a pass rusher, and to have the conditioning to be able to play more than 25 snaps a game. There's some work to be done there.
Yeah. And to be effective late in games, which at times he wasn't in college because the conditioning wasn't there. He's got to be able to be as good in the fourth quarter as he was in the first quarter.
And they should know that. Thinking about even tonight, Nick Sirianni was talking about something else. He was mentioning their 13 personnel package and how they were using it up tempo. In this whole pre-draft process, Sirianni's job when they look at defensive players is to say, as an offensive coach, like what would this player do to me, and what would I try to do to this player? I know what he would try to do to Jordan Davis, and we've seen other college teams try to do it, and he's gotten better with it. But you try to keep him on the field. You try to take advantage of his bigger body, and I don't want to say lack of conditioning, but lack of conditioning. So he's got to make sure he is in tip-top shape, and that's a group effort. It falls on him, but there are other people in the building. But overall, I really do like the pick. You can argue that Kyle Hamilton should have been the pick, and I understand that. I think he's going to be a really good player, but I'm excited to see Jordan Davis on this team, and I think it really is going to unleash a lot of what Jonathan Gannon wanted to do last year and couldn't. I think right now, not just with Jordan Davis, but with a lot of the players they've brought in this offseason, he's going to be able to do the things he couldn't do last year. And it'll be fun. We talk about him in multiple, but he can do a lot of different things up front with the pieces they have now.
Yeah, no question. He was, maybe more conservative than he had to be with the personnel he had. But I understand where he was coming from. But I think this will be, look, if they're still conservative with this personnel, then there's a problem because they're better. They have better talent on defense now than they did last year. Maybe not in the secondary, but certainly in the front seven. So let's see what he does with it.
Yeah. And then second round pick, Cam Jurgens from Nebraska, the center, 300 pounds, obviously an undersized center, but kind of in the mold of Jason Kelsey. Jason Kelsey helped pick him. I like the pick. It's not that I dislike the pick. I'm still not completely sold on the allocation of resources.
Yeah, and we talked about this today. I would not be shocked if Kelsey told them already that he's planning to retire after this year. I think if he's planning to play 3 more years, you don't make this pick. Maybe he doesn't know, and they're just playing the chances and saying, look, he's going to be 35. He'll probably retire. He thinks about it every year. They have his rights for 4 years. So if Kelsey plays 3 more years, now Nick told us and Howie told us tonight that they're going to cross-train him at guard. And we talked about this yesterday or Thursday or some point. To me, that adds to his value. And Nick said, where Landon Dickerson was a guard who could play center, Jurgens is a center who can play guard. So at his size, I'm not sure you want him to be a full-time guard. But look, right guard is going to be up for grabs, and maybe he'll be in the mix, along with Sua and Herbig and Driscoll and Isaac and Fireman Danny, whoever else, Todd Hermans, whoever else they bring in, Tom Zaleski. But I do like the pick because I don't think they make it unless they're really confident and they have reason to believe Jason's not going to play beyond this year. I don't think they make the pick. And Jason was so involved in the pick, in the pick and the scouting and every facet of it. I'm sure that was part of the conversation. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but if I'm Jason Kelsey, I'm like, look, I don't know what I'm going to do next year, but I'm probably not going to play. Then you draft him, and I can't imagine those conversations didn't happen.
Yeah, I will point out though that he didn't think he was going to play this coming year either.
Yeah,
and he got through the season healthy. He played at an all-pro level and said he's going to run it back. If he plays like that again and he still feels healthy this time next year and he says, I want to come back, they're going to bring him back. And that's my own, and I'm quibbling because I really do like the player. And I think it would be seamless because they're very similar. And I think you really could go from one guy to the next guy, and you have then like 20 years covered between two players, a lot like we've seen at left tackle on this team. So I get it. It's a little tough for me to say it's a home run. It could become a home run if it works out.
Yeah, I guess I like him a little more than you do.
And I don't want to make it seem like I don't like the player. I really like the player.
Yeah.
It's
But
just the
I
idea.
understand what you're saying.
And like,
yeah,
and last year, they drafted Landon Dickerson. Little different situation though, because I think he has more flexibility than Cam Jurgens, honestly, even if it's just a guard, because there's two guard positions and there's only one center position. And knock on wood, Jason Kelce plays. They drafted Landon Dickerson to play behind Brandon Brooks, who hadn't been able to stay healthy, whereas they drafted Cam Jurgens to play behind Jason Kelce, who has one of the longest Ironman streaks ever. And that doesn't guarantee anything, but you're potentially using one of his 4 years under contract as a redshirt year.
Yeah.
And if it works out long term, great. I mean, we'll look back at this and I'll say I'm an idiot for even questioning it. If in 5 years' time, Cam Jurgens is an all-pro, Kelsey's hosting the morning show on WIP, telling everyone he knew it,
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and I think it's valid. I just think that there's conversations going on behind the scenes that would likely indicate that Jason's not going to play beyond this year. I don't think he's decided, but I think the odds are that he's told him I probably won't play next year. And if you have him for 3 of those 4 years, I think it's worth it. If you have him for 2, it's not worth it. So I think the odds are that he'll play next year, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. 3rd round pick, Nakobe Dean. I really like it. We'll see. I'm nervous about the medical. Like, I think they are too, when you see him dropping that far. And even Howie admitted, he's like calling the doctors like, is this okay? Like,
am I missing something?
And look, I think that's a real thing in the NFL. Once a player starts to slide, other teams are like, what are we missing? What are we missing? Let's not do it. Let's not do it. And then you end up with such a big slide. And then there were all the reports and about a redshirt year and surgery and all that.
Yeah.
If he's healthy, it's a home run.
Yeah, and they were Howie was adamant about, he's going to practice at minicamp this week. Doesn't need surgery. He's going to play football for us this year. There was he didn't, qualify his comments at all. He's fine. And if it's just a pec strain, if there's no tear, that'll heal. And he should be. Look, September's still a little ways away. So even if he needs another few months of rehab, in addition to whatever they do at the couple minicamp practices they have, it's not going to be real taxing for him. If he can play, if he's healthy by opening day, they stole him. They flat out stole him from the rest of the league.
Even if he's not healthy by opening day, I think they still stole him.
Well, it depends. If that's the case, it depends when he will be healthy. But
yeah, it's the 83rd pick too. It's not like a 2nd round pick where you're really worried. Like, are you gonna? Those are supposed to be immediate impact players. If you get this guy in the 3rd round and he misses a quarter of the season.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying my fear would be that he'd miss a season, which
Well, if he misses the season, then it kicks his rights down the line a little bit. He'd become a restricted free agent.
Yeah.
Instead of unrestricted after the 4 years.
Right.
So you'd have a chance to keep him.
I'm really excited about the player, and
I can't wait to see him.
It's just been such a long time since they've had impact linebackers. And, I think, Bradham had a good year in 2017. Kendricks made some plays here and there. But they weren't elite. Now, Bradham came close at time. He was pretty good, but he wasn't elite. And you got to go back. When's the last time they had an elite linebacker?
Trot.
Well, Willie T. Willie T made 3 Pro Bowls. So I would go back there. But, again, that's, it's a long time. It's been a while. So I think he was drafted in 91. And Trotter was 98. So yeah, those two. Willie T was obviously Willie T was here through 99. Trotter was here through 06. Yeah, they're the only two elite linebackers they've had like in the last 30 years. So uh, it's almost weird that he's here, that he's on this team, because it's not how they build. But um, you need a guy like that. I mean, you need good players at every level, and they've been faking it for a long time. I mean, like, you get excited because Alex Singleton had 15 tackles in a game, and it's like, Alex Singleton, I mean, for an undrafted guy who played in Canada, it was a great story, but you got to be better than Alex Singleton. If you want to be a good football team, you got to do better than that, and they've done better than that now. And they have Kazir White for a year, and we'll see what happens with him. But he's a good player too. So I mean, and then if you want to call Reddick, I mean, technically, if you want to call him a Sam linebacker, he's a linebacker. He's really an edge, but on the depth chart, he's a linebacker. So they've got some pieces there that you can really get excited about. They have good linebackers, and we haven't said that in a long time.
Yeah. As you look at the draft, we talked about AJ Brown enough, but we have to say he's kind of a part of this.
Sure.
In a weird way. I mean, you have to pay him, so it's not purely like a draft pick. Then you also have to remember the trade with the Saints and the future picks that you can't really. It's hard to put them in here, but that matters. They got an additional first next year and future picks after that. So all in all, I think it's a pretty good class. I'm not a big immediate grade guy, but I like what they did for the most part.
Yeah, I'm not big on grades because you look back and I mean, if somebody graded the Eagles 2011 draft, I mean, there's a Hall of Famer in there that wouldn't have even been mentioned, so nobody knows. Howard even said that. He's like, yeah, I mean, I like the players we got, but like, you don't know. You got to go play. We don't know for a couple of years. And that's the truth. But I like the process. I like what they did.
I will tell you that, and I think this is legitimate. He talked about the overall class. I'm sorry to cut you off, but he talked about the overall class. And, if you told him these are the players you're going to get, he said, what do we have to trade to get them?
Yeah.
I believe him there.
Yeah.
You look at the list of players, and this is as giddy as I've seen the Eagles brass during a draft as they were making these picks, especially on day two.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because Howie and Nick are like little schoolgirls giggling and whispering to each other and like passing notes to each other. And Andy Weiler's just sitting there like, all right, guys, grow up. Like, he's like stone faced and he's like totally serious. But yeah, it's true. And I think they have reason to be. I think a lot of things fell their way. Obviously, they didn't get the D-backs they wanted, but they have a lot to be excited about. And AJ Brown's a really good receiver. I mean, he's
very good.
He's not a top 10 receiver, but he's top 20 receiver. He's probably top 15, in that 15 to 18, I guess, somewhere in there.
I think so for sure.
He'll catch you, 65 to 70 for 1,000, 1050, something like that. He's just a good player. And he's going to help.
24 years old.
24, right?
24.
Yeah. He's going to help Hurts. He's going to help Devontae. I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to drop back and have Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown as, and Quez, who is now is a pretty good 3. Whereas a 2, you're like, well, I'm not sure he's really suited to be a 2. Maybe he could grow into that. But as a 3, he's a really good 3. I mean, he's a 3 that cost 600 yards, 650 yards last year. So as a 6th-round pick who was, 22, 23. So they're going to be so much harder to defend with AJ Brown. So that's, it's kind of a move that, yeah, because he wasn't a draft pick, well, we might kind of forget about it, but you have to include him in a way in this whole take because he was part of this draft.
Yeah. And look, I know the counter to that is, well, they put themselves in a position where they had to trade for a receiver. And yeah, you can't overlook that because had they nailed, the Jalen Reagor pick, then they don't have to use these resources. They don't have to use the money to go out and get them. So in a way, they are correcting a previous mistake. But if you look at it right now, today, the moves they made this weekend, they're a significantly better team than they were coming into it.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts will be a better quarterback because he's the people he has to throw to. I mean, you think about, last year they were trying to, Jalen Reagor had played 750 snaps last year. So 750 times, or probably 700 of those times, Jalen Hurts dropped back, and he was one of the options. And so, now you're replacing him with a guy who's a Pro Bowler. It's going to help Hurts so much. And I just, I don't know the last time they had three weapons like Devontae, A.J. Brown, and Goddard, who put up receiver-like numbers, averaged 14.9 a catch, So if you look at his production after the Ertz trade, he averaged something like 60 yards a game. He was 60, 65 yards a game. He was on 1,000-yard pace once Ertz was shipped to Arizona, and that's he'll be the guy this year, and I think he's going to have a 1,000-yard season and make a Pro Bowl. So they've really reshaped both sides of the ball, and they needed to. Let's be honest, they had to do it.
Yeah. How about any other takeaways from the press conference after the draft wrapped up? Our last chance to talk to Howie Roseman until maybe cut down day in August.
Yeah.
Might be our last chance ever to talk to Andy Weidel as a member of this front office. He's a candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers job, so that would be a big loss. But any takeaways from what they said?
Well, we were talking about this walking back for the NovaCare, back to the media house. Howie kind of unprompted started talking about left guard, and one of the questions we had was, does Isaac Seumalo get left guard back? Landon Dickerson played so well. Do you move him to right guard? Does Isaac play? So he just kind of was talking about Cam Jurgens, and Nick had said Cam Jurgens, they would cross train him at guard, and which is kind of it's a good thing to know, because if Kelsey is a starter, he could be in the mix at guard. Although I'm not sure he's a starting guard, at his size. But in any case, Howie started talking about how well Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata work together, and how you don't want to break that up, and you don't want to fix what ain't broke. And as kind of the first time that anybody in the organization has indicated, and he wasn't even asked about left guard, but it's the first time anybody has said that Landon's going to stay at left guard. Now it makes sense. It's logical. The way he played, I can't imagine that you would even consider moving him, but it's significant for them to tell us that and to admit it, here in April. And it kind of, it's one question that's answered going into the season. Now the other question is right guard, and they have a lot of options. And, I asked Nick about that, and he mentions, Seumalo and Sua and Herbig and Driscoll and Cam Jurgens. So right guard becomes really, really interesting. And it sounds like they're just going to, let it play out and let him compete in camp. I kind of have a hunch Seumalo won't be here. We'll see what happens. Who's your best guess that's going to start at right guard opening day?
It's a good question. I'd still go with Seumalo now. And my only you might be right, because the salary too.
Yeah.
And he's coming up the list, Frank. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. I just know that Jeff Stoutland really likes Isaac Seumalo, and if they might give him that one.
Yeah, maybe.
He might have earned that and be like, if Stout wants this guy, we'll keep him at $5 million for this year, let him play it out. If not, then I'd go Jack Driscoll.
Yeah, Driscoll's pretty solid. But he's been hurt a lot too. Something tells me Sua might be in that mix. I think Sua's pretty solid.
Yeah, Sua was a guy that when they got him out of Weber State, they really loved his athleticism, but he had a lot to learn about playing football at the NFL level. And as much as we talk about the projects for Jeff Stoutland, the obvious ones have been, Jordan Mailata and Brett Toth, but Sewell was a project, and they drafted him, or they didn't draft him, but they brought him in as a UDFA because they liked his athleticism. They knew it was going to take a while.
Yeah, but he went in and played meaningful snaps last year and hung in there and played pretty well. So that'll be interesting to watch. But that, I don't know what else. I did ask them about Andy Weidel.
that would be a really significant loss after already losing Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown to then lose their boss, Andy Weidel. And they do have some talent in that front office, and they like to promote from within. I don't know if they have enough to make up for those three.
No,
If they,
Howie even said that. He said, we're going to have to go outside and hire some people.
yeah,
If that happens, I think Andy's going to get that job.
he makes sense there. I mean, he's from Pittsburgh. He seems to. What we know about Kevin Colbert, he seems to have a similar football vision, the scouting background. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and I know that he's been talked about as a finalist there. They haven't announced anything, of course, but it's all lining up that he could end up getting that job.
I think, didn't he start out working for the Steelers? I think he worked under Tom Donahoe, like entry-level guy when he first got started, I believe. And Kevin Colbert, I don't know if I've ever talked about him on the podcast. He was the baseball coach at Ohio Wesleyan when I was there. I've known Kevin for 40 years. Just a class act, a hell of a GM, maybe a Hall of Famer. I don't know. Are any GMs in the Hall of Fame? Tex Schramm, is he in the Hall of Fame? Any of them guys?
I don't know.
They should be. I mean, the architects of the great teams. But Tom Donahoe, hell of a GM at one point. But
they kept him right the heck off of the screen this week.
Sure did. Yeah. He should go in the Hall of Fame just for the Milton Williams pick, But I have a feeling Andy's going to get that job. And you did a great job asking Andy about that. And he just, talked about, right now I'm here and I'm really proud of the work we do. And I love working with these guys. And they seem to have a really good thing going with Andy and Howie and Nick. I mean, there's been so much drama between coaches and front office here forever. It's a healthy relationship, and you need that. You need that to have a consensus on players and opinions. To have coaches and front office working together is so valuable, and it's rare. I mean, I think it's become more the norm, but I think it's really important. They have that, and
when they lost Joe Douglas, it was really seamless.
Yeah,
and it didn't take Joe very long to get a GM job. He was only here a little bit. Andy's been in that position longer than Joe at this point.
How about Joe Douglas's draft? Listen to this, Dave.
I mean, he was fired up.
Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson in the first round. Breece Hall in the second round. Jeremy Ruckert's tight end from Ohio State in the third round.
He's really him a lot.
Max Mitchell, who I had in my All Eagles.
Louisville?
Louisiana,
that's right.
Yeah, Max Mitchell in the fourth round, and then Michael Clemens
from A&M
edge in the fourth round. That's a hell of a draft.
Did you? And I'm sure I sent it to you, the video, or I think I told you about it. The video of him. He had been really trying to get back into the first round to draft Jermaine Johnson, and he finally did it. And he let out an expletive, but it was a fun video. I like getting to see all the behind the scenes video, and of course the team controls.
Yeah.
For the most part, except if Tom Donahoe's upset and the network camera catches it. But Joe had a good draft for himself.
Yeah, Joe's a good football man. It was. I always liked having him around. I always liked talking football with him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember during the what was Joe's first year here? Was it 16, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember
because they put Howie back in power, but they had to wait until after the draft to hire him.
Yeah. I remember talking to Joe, and that was, during the really bad stretch. That team lose 5 games in a row at some point or something.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to Joe before a game on the field, and he's like, losing sucks. He's like, this sucks. I hate this. It sucks. We got to start winning some games. He's just so fired up. And I love that. I'm like trying not to laugh because he's like, and it was just so funny. He's just this big dude. He's just like, he's so wears his heart on his sleeve. It's like, this sucks. It was awesome. Good guy, good GM. He had a hell of a few days, but So I'm glad you asked that. And then it's going to be tough to replace him. And they've lost a lot of guys.
Yeah.
What else? What else from Howie? Anything else today?
Nah. You?
He thanked the cafeteria workers.
He did.
Made some quality meals. So that was good. But interesting few days. And I think it has a chance to be a very successful take.
The one other thing. He was asked specifically about the safety position and Tyrann Mathieu. He said, nothing imminent. And he said again that they're higher on that position than the outside. And that's not that they have to say that. They don't have to say that. But we'll see by their actions.
Yeah.
Too. I think there's a chance they still try to make a move there. And we've seen it corner already on the undrafted market.
A few of them.
I mean, they're really trying to add there after not drafting one. So they can say all they want. We'll see what their actions, what they actually do. I do believe them in a little bit. Like, I think they're higher on Marcus Epps than the fan base.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say that. I mean, Howie mentions every time we ask him about the secondary, he mentions how well Marcus Epps played last year. And he did play well, but it was also in a rotation. And I think it's a big leap from that to being the guy and not having Ronnie to come out and play 40 snaps and mix in there.
I agree.
We'll see. But you mentioned those undrafted corners. They signed three of them in the first hour. Probably the most notable one is Mario Goodrich, who they gave, what was it, $217,000 in guaranteed money.
That's
the most ever given an undrafted free agent. And that deal was done within less than 5 minutes after the draft ended. So, I mean, that you talk about a priority undrafted rookie. That priority number one for this team was getting him in here. He's a guy who at one point was projected anywhere from, late day 2 to early day 3. And it's hard to imagine him, you don't get a lot of undrafted rookies, getting a lot of playing time, but considering what's going on at cornerback with this team, he'll have a chance to compete. They also signed that Josh Jobe from Alabama, who is also a pretty highly regarded prospect, and Josh Blackwell from Duke. So 3 undrafted corners in the first hour tells you what they're thinking. When they didn't draft a corner, they added 3 of them who are going to be in the mix, along with Ty Gowan and Gary Vincent and Mac McCain and all those guys, Josiah Scott.
Yeah, we'll get into the full list of UDFAs next week when we have it, but it's significant. And with those players, you follow the money. The money tells you what they think of them. And every year, sure, someone could come out in training camp and really wow them and blow them away. But the guys with the best shot to make the team are given the most guaranteed money. We've seen that year and year again. Last year was Jack Stoll. He got $122.5 in guaranteed money. So,
and not only made the team, but played a lot.
Yeah, and so for this kid to get $217 guaranteed, it tells you what they think of him. Now, is that a desperation move because they're so light at the position? Probably. That plays a role. And they knew that, they came into this draft with 10 picks. They walked away with 5 draft pick players. They also had a 6th player in A.J. Brown, which is significant, but they didn't walk away with as many players as they probably thought they were going to. So they're trying to replenish that with these UDFAs, and they think there's a lot of talent out there still.
Yeah, and there's more, because so many players who would have come out after the 20 season played another year because they were allowed to. You have a much bigger, pool of draft eligible players, which means the guys that didn't get drafted are of higher quality than usual. So, guys like, Mario Goodrich probably would have been a draft, like a 5th, 6th round pick in a normal year. So he becomes a priority, maybe even higher. So it's an interesting, and how we talked about this a few weeks ago, how everybody anticipated the undrafted pool to be more talented than it's ever been just because of that, because there were so many more players, because so many guys went back and played that extra year. So we'll see. I think we'll have more names, I'm sure, when we're done with the pod. And we have a undrafted rookie free agent tracker on the website, NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. You check it. We're updating it all the time. They have 14 roster spots. Howie said they probably won't sign 14 guys. They want to keep some spots open for other things. They could always cut a guy. But some interesting names right from the start. Carson Strong. I guess am I allowed to say his name? I don't even know what our protocol is going to be with that.
A bit's gone too far when they sign a different guy named Carson, and all of our Twitter mentions are you guys going to say his name on the podcast?
I know. I'm not sure what we should do with that, but yeah. So
interesting. He has a ton of talent.
Yeah.
That knee is a big concern, and he's also a giant statue. He doesn't move very well.
Well, you saw him at the Senior Bowl. How bad was he?
Wasn't great. It was it wasn't great. But there's talent there, and people thought he had first round talent not that long ago. So to bring him in as an undrafted guy and say, "Hey, fight for the third string job," by all means,
or possibly number 2.
Yeah, it's always possible that they ship Gardner out if they ever get a deal they think is worth it.
I still think they're going to trade him. Yeah, we'll see.
They might.
Oh, he said there's. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But Howie said Jalen Reagor will be here. He's an Eagle. He's working hard to get in shape, which is an interesting thing to say. Kind of hinted that he wasn't in shape last year. Jalen blocked me on Twitter. I'm not sure why. Did I say anything mean about him?
Me too.
I hate when people block people on Twitter. It's just such a low class move. But Howie said there's no plans to trade him. He'll be here. He'll be an Eagle. So we'll see.
Yeah, like another one of those. Their actions will dictate
exactly
what they really think.
That means that nobody's offering anything for him.
Probably.
Yeah, we can't.
Anything else?
Can't even get a conditional 7 for him. So he'll be here till we cut him. That's all I got, Dave. Fun day, fun few days.
It was a fun few days. We appreciate you guys listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there. We appreciate you guys following along all week. I'll have my Howie moment real quick. I want to give a special shout out to our audio producer, Ben Berry, video producer, Alex Reuben, who had some real late nights this weekend. We appreciate them. They allowed, we just sit here and talk about football. They're the ones who get the podcast out for you guys. So we appreciate that. This has been Eagle Eye for Reuben. I'm Dave. We'll talk to you next week.